Hey guys, welcome back to Piano Tips. I'm Stefan, and in this video I want to meditate on a question that I get asked very often, which is how long should you stay on a piece before you go on to the next one? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. So, as I said, this question is very common in the piano community, but not just in the piano community, but in the musician community. I get it asked by my students, by my friends, by you guys in the comments. And also, I myself had to question this when I was younger and practiced a lot of pieces when I did have time to practice a lot of pieces. The question seems very intuitive, right? You should master a piece, and when you know it perfectly well, you go on to the next one. But obviously, if it was that simple, I wouldn't be making this video and you wouldn't need to look for this video. So it's a lot more complex than that. Now, to be able to answer this question, I'm going to talk about a couple of scenarios just so you can understand how different the outcome of this question could be for you if you belong to a different scenario. So let's start with two examples. One where you're a beginner student, for example, and you are learning from method books, and the method books are progressive, and let's assume that you do every single page, and the next page that you do is always going to be harder than the one before. So if you belong to this category and you follow that kind of very premeditated progress, then it's easier to understand that you shouldn't really go on to the next one if you can't do the previous one, because they are all progressive. However, some of the method books have, 120 pieces, and maybe only 18 of them are actually really enjoyable and things that you would actually play in your free time if it wasn't for your lesson. And the other 80 or 100 are teaching you something. They are okay, but not really amazing pieces, and many of them are very similar to each other as well. So you might not even want to do all of them, because if you can do one perfectly well and the second one is very similar, then why would you waste your time on something that you can already do but you don't really enjoy? So in this case, I would say if you can play most of the pieces at around 70 or 80% accuracy, you can go on to the next one. Now always pick at least a quarter of the pieces from the book, if you follow a method book, that you learn really, really well and you master it to perfection so you can perform it in front of people. And if you do that, there's no need to make absolutely every single piece perfect and master to 100% precision in those method books, because it will slow you down. You might get bored of those very simple pieces. You might not like the sound of those, and you could actually spend more time on the ones that you enjoy or the nicer pieces, but you still get the benefit of those other songs in the book as long as you learn them to around 70-80% accuracy. Saying this as a teacher, obviously you might think, why would you not want to learn something to perfection? And as I said, if you have the patience and you have the stamina to learn everything to perfection, then it's fine. But most people who play piano and go through these method books and who watch me in these videos are people who play piano as a hobby in their free time, and they don't have time to practice 2-3 hours every single day to make sure every single piece is perfection. So if you're a hobby pianist and you follow a method book, as I said, try to get most of the pieces 70-80% accurate and pick at least a quarter of the pieces and make them really perfect to a level where you would feel comfortable performing them in front of other people. Let's have a look at scenario 2, where you are still a beginner or intermediate student and you don't really follow any method book. You just play pieces that you like, that you hear on YouTube, or that you find the sheet music or whatever, or your teacher gives you random pieces after each other. Now this one is a lot harder to kind of put into boxes, because what can happen is that the pieces are not progressive at all. So you play something that seems very, very difficult, and then you play something after that which seems much easier because it's something different. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't play something easier after something difficult, because that might teach you a very different skill, but the pieces might not be in order of difficulty. And in that case, sometimes if a piece is not at your level, it's very hard to make it perfect. it would require a very long time, a lot of practice, and even after a lot of practice, you might not be able to play it perfectly. And this is where my biggest argument comes up here. As a piano teacher, I always try to encourage my students to play pieces which are around your level. Now, sometimes it's good to challenge yourself and get inspired by trying to play something that's harder than your current level, because it makes you practice more, it makes you more excited, it makes you more inspired. But I've had students in the past who, let's assume, were at grade 3 level with their technique and music theory knowledge, and they wanted to pick grade 8 pieces and even harder ones to play instead of trying to do the things that you need to do in order to get to that level. And it was a difficult challenge, because you don't want to kill the student's motivation and inspiration. But the big danger here is if you play something that's much, much harder than your level, you won't be able to get the kind of perfection that you hear from people who have been playing for a much longer time, who have practiced a lot more, and who have a lot more experience behind them. And when you play a piece for months and months and months, you practice so much and you still can't get that clarity or the speed or whatever you're looking for in that piece, it can be very discouraging. You don't get the kind of satisfaction at the end of that piece, and you get really bored and you feel burnt out because you've been playing something for so long and it still doesn't sound as good as it should. And if you belong to that category who plays these pieces, then obviously you shouldn't play a piece until perfection before you go to the next one. If you realize halfway through that this piece is really out of your league and it's not beneficial at the moment to learn it, because you won't be able to get the kind of satisfaction and value from it, then try to change to something else that's either something more simple or something that you already have the skills for. Obviously, I've been talking about beginners and intermediate students. I'm not going to be talking about advanced and expert students, because if you're one of those, you're probably not going to watch this video, because you already know the answer to this from your experience, from your practice, from your teacher, from the institution where you're learning from. But I think this is a very difficult question if you learn by yourself, because there's no one to kind of approve that, okay, you can go on to the next piece now. If you have a teacher, it's always easier to kind of progress, because you don't have to make all the decisions yourself. Your teacher might allow you to pick pieces, might allow you to go on to the next one if you really get bored or you hate the current piece you're practicing at the moment. But if you don't have the teacher, if you don't have the guidance, you have to make all of these decisions yourself. And if you have to make the decisions, just remember, playing everything to perfection might not be the most efficient way to improve your technique, to be a better pianist. In general, quality always comes before quantity, but you shouldn't get to the extreme end of this saying, because you do need quantity in order to be a better pianist. And by that, I mean that, for example, if you only learn 3 pieces because you're doing ABRSM exams or any other kind of piano exams, and you don't do anything else apart from those 3 pieces, you get to grade 5 and you've only played 15 pieces, 5 times 3. And that's not going to make you a grade 5 student. Someone else who has played 100 pieces, maybe not all of them to perfection, maybe just a quarter of them to perfection, is going to be much better off at that level, at grade 5 level, than that person who only played 3 pieces for each grade. And the reason for that is because the more music you play, the more experience you get in different styles, the more rhythms you see, the more technical challenges you come across, and the better your sight reading is going to get, because you read so much music. If you keep playing the same thing, you might play that piece really well, but you might really limit yourself to the challenges that one specific piece presents you, and you might not know what to do when you see other challenges. So what I'm trying to say here is it's okay sometimes to go on to the next piece, even if it's not perfect, as long as you can get it to an enjoyable level where you can play it fluently at a decent speed without too many error notes. It's fine. But always pick a few pieces which you really enjoy, that you perfect, because it's very important to have the stamina and patience to perfect a few pieces that really are going to give you that kind of feeling of satisfaction and achievement that you managed to get that with those pieces. But you need to like those pieces, and we don't always love every single piece that we play, especially from method books and technique books. Having that good balance between the pieces that you perfect and most of them that you really learn from, but you don't spend an exhaustive amount of time, I think it's crucial in order to have good progress with your piano lessons, to make sure that your time is spent in the most efficient way. If you only have time to practice half an hour a day or even less, like 3 times a week, then obviously you want to spend half of the time perfecting a few pieces, but you want to spend the other half of that time playing through as much music as you can with more or less accuracy throughout, so you get more experience in both technique, sight reading, style, and different other kind of challenges that you might see or come across from different pieces. So I hope this made sense, and it's going to give you a little bit of guidance that it's okay to go on without playing a piece perfectly well. If you, for example, learn a piece about arpeggios and it's very long, but you managed to get the arpeggios clean, but you couldn't memorize every single chord or arpeggio in that piece, and you play a couple of wrong notes, it's fine, because the purpose of that piece was to teach you how to play continuous smooth arpeggios. And once you master that one specific aspect of that study or etude, it's okay to have a few wrong notes in it. If you have any more questions about this, leave them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.